Do you need a web application security solution that can improve your detection rate and enable easier remediation? Acunetics has a fully automated solution that can detect and report over 4,500 web vulnerabilities. Fast and scalable, it can scan thousands of pages without interruption, including HTML5, JavaScript, and single-page applications. Acunetics provides accuracy with the lowest false positives by combining black box and white box testing. For more information, visit acunetics.com/Security Weekly. Welcome back, everyone, to Application Security Weekly. I think I've got another announcement. I think yes, of course, the RSA conference, March 4th through the 8th in San Francisco. We'll be there doing all kinds of fun stuff. You can go to rsaconference.com/Security Weekly, Security Weekly-US 19. In any case, you got a discount code. It's 5U9SWFD. Get you $100 off the conference pass. You can, of course, go to securityweekly.com/conference request. Request a free briefing or a paid interview that will air on Enterprise Security Weekly. All righty. Joff, we got some stories to talk about, which I think is kind of interesting because under bugs, breaches, and more, I mean, these three stories really kind of relate to like really table stakes security controls that are missing. Wouldn't you agree? Like, I can't believe after almost 14 years we're sitting here still talking about these.
It amazes
things, right?
me. The absolutely. I mean, it just amazes me. I mean, think about just SQL injection, right? 20, 25 years later, we're still talking about it. You know, it's
kind of depressing.
A crazy thing.
I mean, it's exciting to talk to someone like Tim at vArmor, right? In all of the new technology and innovation and the way they're able to help us apply security controls and compliance to tens of thousands of applications. But now we pull ourselves back into reality and realize that it's a smaller percentage in departments in those companies that are doing that level of software, security, network, and systems engineering and operations, right? But now we come back to these three stories. One is many of the Fortune 100 still use the flaw that led to the Equifax breach, right? Which was, I always get the thing wrong. That was the Java thing. What was it?
Oh, I thought it was Struts.
Struts. I'm sorry. Yeah, Apache Struts. Yeah.
Which is amazing, right? I mean, you know, that's a straight up vulnerability. It's completely patchable,
right?
There's no, there's no excuse, frankly, not to. And if you're still using vulnerable software, well, the good old fashioned vulnerability management, your patch cycle, your managing of your assets, the same stuff we've been talking about over and over and over again. That's what people need to get a handle around.
Yeah, and I mean, I lived that, almost 20 years ago. I was doing sysadmin and development, and the primary application we were working with was Java. We used a lot of Java frameworks, libraries, application servers, all of which, if you said had to be upgraded, it was waterfall development, right? Like it was months or a year before those things are patched, which is, why I think the Fortune 100 is still sitting there, because they just haven't gotten to that level where they can patch and react fast enough, which is sad.
Yeah, it is. But fortunately, I do think there's room for some enthusiasm and some optimism, because look at the things we were just talking about. The level of agility now in some of the newer technologies, the containerization is just amazing, right? Managing these workflows at the level of containers rather than virtual machines, just that next level up, gives the ability to react for organizations that adopt that technology. So much agility, so much more flexibility, so much more ability to just move through the problem and get assets out of the mix, put new assets in the mix.
Yeah,
I mean, it has its downsides as well, but the ability to react is so much faster than it used to be, which I think is an opportunity.
Well, and also the ability to deploy has increased exponentially as well, right? Deploying new infrastructure or applications is easier than ever in virtual and cloud environments. And that's why we see, story number 2, bugs, breaches, and more. I mean, MongoDB, you still got instances of Mongo hanging out there that have like no password on them. Essentially, is it no password, or default password, or a combination thereof? I mean, they're basically just hanging out there.
Yeah, I think it's sort of the same old story. It's that ease of deployment, that ease of uh, containerization, also put in the hands of people that don't really know what they're doing, is leading to further exposure in some cases, which is unfortunate. But in the hands of people that do know what they're doing, I think we've now reached a level where the ability to secure things is far superior than what it used to be,
Mm.
even as little as a couple of years ago.
And what a great segue into story number 3 about IoT, because I think this falls in the same boat, right? Of there are frameworks and ways to produce internets of things, devices that are internet connected, maybe to a cloud and to a mobile app. IoT is all encompassing, but Microsoft's vSphere technology, and there was another framework that I was reading about as well. It didn't come from Microsoft; it came from somewhere else. I don't remember where, but I'm seeing a couple vSphere. One I'm familiar with, the other one not so much, but frameworks that are out there to build a secure IoT environment. It's actually some of the things that Larry was talking about a couple of years ago, I think, right? Is how do you, yeah, it's one thing to produce a device that's going to go in a commercial business or a home and secure it, but how do you secure everything that encompasses IoT? And that's the management of it, the user interface, the API, the connection to the cloud, and the mobile app. And now we have frameworks that can do that securely, but there's a lot of time that's going to be spent getting people to that point. And when they're not at that point, you're deploying this one like industrial refrigerators that can be remotely defrosted thanks to default passwords.
Yeah, it's been a problem for a while that's been begging to be solved, and it's great to see frameworks emerge. But connecting the manufacturers and their software dev groups with that knowledge and with those frameworks is the next big leap, and that's going to be more difficult to do possibly than even building the frameworks to build these things on top of. And all of us have seen this, where we've got these really really poorly constructed, usually very elementary HTML
Mm-hmm.
applications on top of these IoT devices, that are just full of holes. And to have one that's sitting out there with default passwords is not unusual. And industrial refrigerators
Yeah.
sitting on the internet.
Yeah, these are
It's
industrial, and it's the article says they are in use in restaurants, hospitals, supermarkets, grocery stores in the UK, Ireland, Sweden, Germany, and China. And you're right, the interface does look like a very, very simple, web interface that are typically vulnerable, and it, doesn't surprise me that these are deployed insecurely. And again, it's just, time and maturity of these manufacturers to get to the point where they can deploy them securely.
I think there's an opportunity for a very good API development shop to come in and seek out that market, because I think a lot of these industrial IoT devices, especially, they're looking at the web app interface that they bolt onto these things as probably the very last step in their process,
Yeah.
and they're just going out and getting whatever developer they can to whack something together really quick, which is clearly leads to problems, right?
Yeah, and I think there's going to be hopefully more economic incentive for businesses to implement it securely, right? I mean, right now, if you're providing industrial refrigerators, security is not top of mind in your development. And slowly we're seeing industries come over to that. I think, ICS and healthcare are certainly starting to, down that journey and in a good ways down that journey. But it's going to take time before commercial and consumer level devices reach that level of maturity, and the economic incentives, penalties and things like that, I think are going to start to hopefully change this mindset so that we get more secure. Because I'm tired of talking about vulnerable refrigerators and stuff, to be honest with
Yeah,
you,
I,
right?
I know. I think it's going to be more of a stick than anything else. There's going to end up being penalties, and that'll force people to change.
Hmm.
It's a shame, but I think that seems to be where we're headed overall.
Absolutely.
So,
You got beeping.
it
What is
is what
that
it is.
behind you, John? Is that like a video game console that you're building? I'm impressed.
Yeah, actually, right behind me is a video console that I built over the holiday break, for for fun, giggles, and grins, a little bit of woodworking and a little bit of Raspberry Pi work.
Nice.
And what's beeping in the background is my solar battery rig, which is now getting very upset with me because the batteries are very near flat. So
Gotcha.
that's what's beeping at me.
No worries.
I'm going to be cut off the solar power shortly, but fear not, I will automatically roll over to AC line power when that happens.
That's sexy. I like it.
Yeah, it
so
is.
nerdy. So many iPhone apps are secretly recording your screen without asking. I was confused. I thought this said Android. I thought there was a feature in Android that people could just do that. Now apparently it's in iOS as well.
Wow. Secretly recording the screen without asking. That part is what's bothering me the most, because a lot of the mobile APIs, the model tends to be ask permission, and then the user, just like they do with their web browsers, go ahead, give permission anyway. Who cares about that silly warning, right? But without even asking, that's somewhat disturbing.
Yeah, it sounds to me like someone at Apple, like there was a loophole that a lot of these apps were taking advantage of, and there's probably several people at Apple that probably feel some sense of responsibility for it. And now Apple is telling developers that they have to disclose if they're going to be able to capture the screen, or they have to remove their screen recording code. And I believe everything I've read and learned about Apple's, App Store, that they can enforce this probably pretty successfully.
Yeah, I the other trend that this article alludes to is analytics code inside of apps as well, and that has actually bothered me for some time, both web apps and well, actually any apps. But the amount of data that a user is giving up with just analytics being inside the app, most developers of different mobile apps will say, well, that's for us to collect diagnostics on how the
Yes.
app's doing, but that can so easily be abused. It can go so far beyond just the application functionality aspect of things.
It's interesting as, we talk about the app market in a general sense. And we've covered it a lot on this show. The mobile app store, which was really introduced by Apple in a major way, bringing it to the masses, and the way they've tried to control that, I think, is admirable. I think they've done a decent job of that. But over time, there's so many more of these kind of app environments that have sprung up that really cause great concern from a software security perspective. And Chrome and other browsers have the add-on market, as they have for some time. As a software developer job, right? I mean, we use libraries in open source software all the time, which is essentially like another app or marketplace. I mean, if you do node development, right? Node's got its own thing. Python, even, Joff,
That's right.
Obviously you're an expert in Python, an instructor of the SANS class for Python for pen. Is it still called Python for pen testers? It's
No,
not,
we're now
right?
calling it, and I trip over this even myself every time. We're calling it automating information security with Python.
Right, because it's red and blue team now in the class, correct?
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. We have a day 3, 4, 5, which is defense, forensics, and offense.
Mm-hmm.
So we try to cover the waterfront now that we didn't used to have. Our days 1 and 2 are core essentials. So the breakdown of the class is very, very nice. We spend those first few days really driving home people's core essential skills in the language, and then we go into applied information security after that, which is a really nice format.
And even in Python, much like your Linux package manager, is the same thing, right? You've got a core base of code, and then you're adding on packages. How much do you trust those packages? When you do pip install something, how do you know what you're really getting, right?
Well, you don't, and it is a little bit like the Google Play Store for Android. It's pretty trivially easy to publish an app or a package in the case of Python up into pypi.python.org, which is the Python package manager that is a community resource. The way that I would advise most people, and I do advise my students, is go up to pypi.python.org and read about the package. Look at the ratings that it's getting.
Mm-hmm.
There is a basic rating system there. And look at the comments and see for yourself to sort of assess your feeling about the app, but that about the package. But that's really about all you can do. And and you hope that people are doing the right thing by you. And I think the same thing applies to containers. With you look at Docker, it's the same thing. There's a lot of community containers that are published out there. You hope that they're doing the right things. You're leveraging them. You go out and find a basic Nginx container, or you go out and find an
Yeah, it's
Ubuntu
the same
container.
thing, right?
Yeah, and you're trusting, frankly, that the publisher of that container is not poisoning the well,
Right. And you could do that, and then down the road, you get screwed. And it sounds like this was the case with this Chrome extension, which was automatic 4K HD for YouTube. So it had 4.2 million users, right? So essentially what the add-on would do was when you watch YouTube videos, it would make sure it's always in the highest quality. That's cool, right? I can get behind that. Obviously, it was really popular. The extension's authors, though, were always shrouded in mystery. As the article states, they never really disclosed anything about it. However, if you went to an add-on, in any sense that any framework that we're talking about, your browser, Python, containers, and it had 4.2 million downloads, right, and all good reviews, that could be enough for you and iJoff to go, yeah, I think that's safe for right now. And then what happened in the case with this Chrome add-on is you start getting pop-up ads inside your browser. Well, now that's a serious security concern, obviously, right? Now you're loading, basically, you can load any JavaScript you want from wherever. Who knows who they're running ads from.
It's been well documented how these advertising networks have embedded APIs inside of their APIs. So it's really a nefarious thing. That what can potentially go on once you get into the pop-up business, because there's all kinds of layers of third-party extension APIs built into these JavaScript libraries.
Yeah, it's just crazy. How do we vet all of this stuff? It's really a concern for me.
I would love to see it. Look, on that topic, especially in the containerization world, I would love to see a vetting system actually built into the containers.
Well, they do. Docker has technology that they've built in for that, Joff. And we've talked about it, and it's only as good as the amount of effort you want to put into it, right?
Yeah, like anything, right? It was the same old argument with open source, right? People used to say, well, it's open source, so like everybody and their brother actually can see the code. But when you really get down to it,
what are you looking for?
In some instances, probably you're never going to look at the code. In other instances, there's only a very small pool of people that actually have the skills to look through that code, right? I mean, maybe look at the crypto hashing functions in OpenSSL. Okay, yeah, it's great. It's open source. Everybody can go look at the code. But how many people are really going to do that? And secondly, how many people have really got the skills to be able to read that code and actually understand it?
Mm-hmm. No, it's a great point.
So it's a crazy world.
So under learning and tools, Joff, what do you use for an editor primarily, Joff? Are you kind of old school like me? Like I just use VI for pretty much everything. I haven't gravitated any fancy, but the amount of hours I spend in software engineering is not nearly as many as some. And I know Keith is a big fan of VS Code.
Yeah, so I will tell you that I'm a big fan in the Windows world of a combination of things. When I'm in the world of Windows, I will use Sublime, which I really like.
That's a good one.
And I will also use Visual Studio when I'm in the world of C#, because frankly, the IDE in Visual Studio is fantastic.
Yeah.
On the Linux side of the house, as well as the Windows side of the house, I am definitely subject to using VI on a fairly frequent basis. The Python plugins, in the case of VI Improved, are very, very powerful, very useful, and I don't have any problem using those. And in fact, in the class I teach, generally we start out with beginners and we steer people towards gedit. Because they're so new to the operating system in many cases. But those who have skills with VI, I just tell them go ahead and use VI.
Yeah, I agree with that approach as much as I am a fan of VI, and that's what I learned early on. And it does take time to learn, especially the VI editor. And even when I use it today, I've been using it for 20 years. I'm still like, I need to take some time and go back and learn even more about it, because you're not going to learn every single. There are people way more advanced in VI than I am, is what I'm trying to say. But if you're in a classroom setting like that, or you want to embark on a new journey and learn something new, I think it's a great point. You've got to prioritize what you want to learn, right? We were just talking about Chris Long's project. Are you familiar with that, Joff, where you can build a Windows environment? We did it on PSW last week. I think you were Detection Lab. Thank you.
No, I'm not. I'm actually not familiar with that. And I was teaching last week. So
so a bunch of vagrant scripts and builds a whole Windows environment with a Linux box and Splunk and turns on all the logging so you can detonate malware and get the telemetry. And we were having this conversation about like, but what if you haven't ever built a Windows system before? Like, would you learn how to do that first? It depends on your goal. So in the classroom setting, are you going to teach someone who maybe needs some training on Linux, right, to get up to speed, and then they're learning Python in the class, and then they're learning some security stuff, and then you're going to throw on top of it, by the way, you got to like learn VI on top of all. Like, you don't want to put that much burden on yourself or students or people that are learning, right? I think you need a phased approach.
Yeah, one of my students last week actually said to me, he said, "Look, I noticed you were editing a script in VI, and there was a bunch of additional text that was coming up and giving you some help and stuff. Or, how do I get that?" And I said to him, "Have you ever used VI before?" And he goes, "No, I have no idea what it is." I said, "Well, we don't want to cross that bridge this week.
Not this week." Yeah. Yeah. After they go through the class, go through some labs and get comfortable, and then, add that to your kind of learning plan, right? Is I'm going to learn VI. And I always think of it like Tiger Woods' golf swing. And I remember reading an article, and I don't know if it was probably an article on a different topic because I don't really follow golf, right? But it was basically around the fact that Tiger Woods, obviously really good golfer, obviously had some, issues that were sensationalized as well. But in terms of golf, we stick to that for a moment. He had learned a particular, form for his swing and achieved a very high level in golf, obviously, right? At some point made the decision that he could be a better golfer if he changed his swing, and knew that his scores would, in golf, go up or down, whatever the worst score is in golf, right? I think it's
your score is going to go up if you're playing badly.
Yeah, if you're playing badly, your golf score is going to go up. So he knew his score was going to go up, therefore performing worse. But then over time, as he learned that new swing, his score was going to go down and be a better golfer. And I think there's a lot of things like that in technology, and I'm sure you've been there too, our audience has been there too, where you're like, I want to start coding in a new language or learning a new editor or learning a new operating system. I still want to be able to accomplish the things I did before, but I'll be able to do it better. But I know that there's going to be a period of time where things are just going to take longer and I'm not going to be at my level of efficiency. But when I get there, I'm going to be able to exceed it because I've learned something else.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I actually watched that happen in real time last week, and every week I teach the class because we go through day 1 and 2, and there's a lot coming at them at once, which is, very typical SANS, right? They say it's
drinking from the fire hose, right? Yep.
Yeah. It's really only until we get to about day 3 that people are starting to go, "Oh, that's what that meant," in the middle of day 1.
Yeah. Exactly.
So it's tough. I feel for him sometimes, but that's the way it goes.
Any other stories that pop out at you, Jeff?
Stories. Let's see. Sort of interesting Facebook story there about the antitrust office in Germany.
I didn't think it was. I mean, that's kind of interesting.
Not very interesting. Okay.
We talk about Facebook. I'm kind of tired of talking about Facebook too.
Yeah.
They're always in the news though, so I mean, when there's nothing else to talk about, we can always talk about Facebook.
So what's this one on how to break up with your phone? I mean,
so this was a book recommendation. It's probably a good place to round out the show, Joff, about basically the description of the book is like, do you wake up in the morning and look at your phone, and then, last thing you do before you go to bed is look at your phone, and you're like, oh, I'm only going to check it for like just a check quick, and then 45 minutes later, you're like, where did all the time go?
Right.
So it's how to break up with your phone. I don't know.
Well, I had a bit of a panic actually when I got back from my teaching gig. I actually drove because it's only about a 4-hour trip from here. But like a silly idiot, I left my phone in the rental car when I dropped it off, and so I came
Oh
home
no,
from the
that's
airport.
one way to break up with your phone.
Yeah, that's right. I came home from the airport, and I was going to call my wife, so I'm looking around for my phone, going,
Mhm.
"Oh, where is it?"
Crap.
And then I had the realization, it's like, darn it, I left it in the damn rental car. So
I hate
I
it
had
when
to
that
go back
happens.
out to the airport and get my phone. So
At
I
least you got
almost
it back though. That's good.
yeah. Well, I was considering, I knew exactly where I'd lost it, but if I hadn't, I was considering calling up my employer and say it's time to invoke the forced data wipe
Right.
from my
Right.
phone. We were in a
Execute order
situation.
86 on my cell phone.
Right. So,
Yeah. So one strategy that I use, Joff, because I love my phone and I love technology, and there's a lot of reasons that I need to use my phone, right? And sometimes the wife gets at you like, "Hey, you're checking Facebook again." I'm like, no, like I'm fixing the Wi-Fi at home, or adjusting the
right.
thermostat, or like my phone does so much, which again, security of your phone is very important, right? Biometric authentication, two-factor. I've got actually a USB-C two-factor thing that gets me into my LastPass, which is highly inconvenient, but is a level of security that I want on my phone, because when you get into my phone and you're going to use the apps, right? My Twitter feed and all of the home
So do
controls,
you,
it's all on your phone.
so I'm just wondering, Paul, I've got a YubiKey here,
Yes.
and I when I have to unlock my password vault on the phone, of course, I have to get the adapter, which turns
Yes.
this USB into micro USB, and then
Correct.
plug it into the. And yes, I go through that same exercise.
Yeah.
But
And no, they do support NFC. I've found it doesn't work reliably on Android, is what I've
yeah,
found. So that's why I just got the little USB C dongle.
yeah,
But I try and do things that are more productive. I try not to, go in and like read the Facebook feed, which I feel like is a time waster. I use apps like Flipboard, Feedly to read my news stories, flag stuff for work, things like that. Research things on the browser and be more productive when you do use your phone. Or you could get this book and learn how to use your phone less, I guess.
Uh, okay, I'm going to admit to a habit I have now, which actually makes me sleep better, and that is just this. I put the phone down in the office at about 9 o'clock at night, and I close the office door, and I do
Yeah.
not sleep with the phone by my bed. I
Yeah.
just don't.
I think that's good advice.
Yeah.
Until you get either cold or hot in the middle of the night and you want to adjust the thermostat temperature.
Yeah. Right.
There is a commit strip for this week as well. The title of it is Let It Be Known. Love the commit strips. Thank you, Joff, for appearing on this episode. It's been wonderful. Thanks, everyone, for listening and watching. Don't forget to git commit and stay classy. See you next time.